Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie from Story a Day here. How are you doing? It is the end of November as I record this, and it's that time of year when we all start looking back and looking forward. We're looking back at what we've achieved this year. We're planning for the year ahead. And yes, 2020 has been a dumpster fire. My husband just made a dumpster fire ornament for our Christmas tree. But that doesn't mean that nothing good came out of it, right? Maybe you were one of those people who was able to write more or discover things about your writing. Maybe you simply learned the lesson that you can't stay glued to the news forever. When I was studying history, there was a concept that historians talked about, which was the long crisis of the 17th century, 17th and 18th centuries. And there was revolutions and wars and famines and economic upheaval and social upheaval. And they called this the long crisis of the century. And my favourite teacher was my history teacher. And one of the reasons he was my favourite teacher is because he would say things like this. He would say, "You can't have a crisis that lasts a century. It's a stupid name. You can't have a crisis. Crisis, by the definition of it, is something that is acute. This past year has not been a crisis all year long. There have been periods of acute crisis where we needed to focus on what was happening, and there have been lulls in between. But our bodies aren't really good at figuring that out, and a lot of us have been running in crisis mode since March. It's not sustainable. So I want to invite you, as you plan ahead, to think about the fact that every year this is true, and it's going to remain true this year. January the 1st looks a lot like December the 31st. Things don't magically change on January the 1st. Yes, it's an opportunity to turn a new page in your diary and do new things and try a new challenge and challenge yourself, blah, blah. But we know realistically that the first half, at least, of 2021 is not going to be ideal. Are you going to put your life on hold and follow the news and worry about stuff that you can't actually control obsessively to the point where you can't get any writing done? Or are you going to invite yourself to step out of crisis mode, if possible? Some of you might be in actual crises, and I am not diminishing that at all. You have to look after what you have to look after. But if you're safe and you're healthy and you have enough food and you're just spinning out of control because the world is spinning out of control, I would invite you to stop and take a breath and just be patient and say, you know what? It's going to be like this for a little while. What can I do within that container to help myself? And I would argue that the fix for us is not waiting for a cure, waiting for a vaccine, obsessing with the news. The fix for creative people is to focus. And I know it sounds like I'm asking you to do the impossible, but if we can focus on our work, we give ourselves a break every day that we write. We step outside time. Don't you feel that when you're writing? You sort of time, when you get into the flow, time stops and you step outside this linear life that you're leading with all of the stuff that's coming at you from the outside, and you get to play with your imaginary friends. You get to express and explore the big ideas that really matter to you, and you get to create characters that you either want to be or you want to hang out with or you want to defeat. And I can't think of a better way to look after yourself in a time when crises are popping up every few days. So focus might be the fix, but it's sort of like saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, that's sort of gravitationally impossible. And if you are having trouble focusing on your writing, it's all very well for me to say, just focus, like shout at you, just stand there and shout at you, focus more. Like my eyesight is so bad that when I go to the opticians, they go, oh. And somebody can stand in front of me and shout, just focus, and I'm not going to be able to see any better. What we need are people to help us with the tools that we need to let us achieve this focus. The other thing I've discovered from people watching people in my general life and in the Story a Day community is that the people who are happiest are people who are willing to adapt. They are people who have endless curiosity. So they're willing to adapt, and they're willing to adapt quickly. So like I say, the next 6 to 9 months are not going to be what you want them to be. Can you adapt? Can you say, okay, I've got it. It's not going to be what I want to be. So what can I do to make it better? And I will tell you, the people I know who are who are just the happiest in life are the ones who adapt. They are curious about everything. They are willing to learn something new. I have people in my life in their 30s and 40s who are frustrated with technology and throw up their hands and say, I just don't want it to be this way. And I have people in my life who are in their 80s who say things like, sure, I could probably run a Zoom meeting. I just need someone to show me how to do it. And these people are the happiest people I know. They are hope-filled. They believe that they can take actions that will improve their lives and the lives of the people around them. They may not know how to do it, but they're willing to ask for help, and they are willing to focus on the thing that they need to do and not give up. They're persistent. So all this to say, at this turn of the year, are you willing to adapt, to be curious, to ask for help? Are you willing to stop waiting? What could your writing life look like next year? What projects could you complete if you focused? You can't write everything all at once. What could you focus on in the next 6 months, in the next 3 months, in the next 6 weeks that would move you closer to your goals of being someone who writes well, someone who has fans, whatever your goals are? I think all of our writing goals have to start with, I am a person who writes. What can you do? What are you willing to do? What scares you a little bit? Are you willing to stop waiting and start writing? Hi, it's Julie. Are you frustrated with trying to do this writing thing alone and without a plan? The IWriter course is back to give you a great big kickstart in your writing practice. It's a course for people who are fed up of dabbling and who want to make some progress so that they feel confident saying, I am a writer. Come and find out how it feels to write and complete multiple short stories in the company of others who are on the same journey. The IWriter course is based in 10 years of writing short stories myself and working with other writers, pulling together all the best practices and building a model you can follow. It's worked for a lot of writers already, but I bet you have questions about whether it would work for you. So I've put together a page that tells you all about the IWriter course. It's at storyaday.com/IWriter. Don't wait, let's write now, not someday. I'm back, and last time I did a Q&A section, which was really fun, and I got more questions. So I'm going to do the same thing again this week. So I'm going to start with a question from Elizabeth, who asked how to get over a mid-project slump. And first of all, I'd say it depends on what you mean by the mid-project slump, because if it's a question of actually not knowing how to get through the middle of the story, then I'm going to refer you back to episode 189 of this podcast, where I talked about a structure for making it through the middle with 3 sort of separate scenes or elements that can help you get through that. If it's a question of getting through the mid-project slump in that it just never seems like it's going to end, then that's more of a mindset thing, right? That's more of a going back to the base principles of what motivated you to start the story in the first place. And you need to do, I think, a little bit, and it sounds a little new agey, but I think you need to do a little mental time traveling and actually maybe like meditate a little bit, take some deep breaths, close your eyes, take yourself back in time. And if you made notes at the beginning of your project, this can be really helpful to go back and look at them and like look at your handwriting or look at the way you expressed yourself. Because what you want to do is you want to get yourself back into that state when you first started this project and you were super excited about it. And the reason you were excited about it was not because you wanted to sit and write all day and sort of manage new technical skills and get published, or it was none of that. I mean, getting published sometimes excites people, but I don't think it's a sustainable excitement. What excited you about the project was something deeper. It was the idea excited you. The characters seemed thrilling. The idea of exploring this really worked for you. The thought of somebody who needs to hear it, reading it. You know, maybe you thought of yourself in a dark time when you read a book that changed your life. And then when you came up with the idea for this story, you were like, I could do that for someone. I could take that joy I felt and I can pour it into this story and give it to someone else who I'll never meet. So whatever it was that got you excited about this project at the beginning is going to be really, really powerful as you try and navigate the mid-project slump. Yes, it's hard, and yes, you've just got to keep plodding on. But if you can spend a little time at the beginning reconnecting, like really reconnecting with whatever it was that excited you about the project, I think that's really going to help. So thank you for that question, Elizabeth, and keep listening because the next part is also going to be appropriate for you, because Anne had a question about procrastination, which hits for sure in the mid-project slump, right? Anne said, I'd like to talk about how I make myself knuckle down and do the work. Oh, look, some clothes need folding, some carpets need vacuuming. Oh, some books need rearranging. Yeah, I've never done that. Anybody else? None of us know what you're talking about, Anne. Yeah, so this is kind of the same thing, but different. The specific project one is easier to attack in a way because you've already started writing and you can take some time to reconnect with the motivating factor behind why you started this particular project. The general sort of how can I make myself do some work question is a tough one because it's tough, but it's totally something that you can master, and you'll probably have to keep at it. This is not something I can cure for you once and you're done. You're going to have to keep at this because we evolve, and the crazy imposter and saboteurs inside us also evolve. But anyway, you can get over the procrastination, and there's a bunch of things you can do. One is what I was talking about earlier in this episode, which is focus. It's overwhelming to think about writing. It's less overwhelming to think about writing a 100-word story. It's even less overwhelming to think about writing the all is lost moment near the end of your novel. That's a specific task that you can do. So for procrastination, it's usually based in fear of not being able to do it well enough, fear of it being hard, and our brains want to keep us safe. It's the old saber-toothed tiger thing. If we're afraid of something, our brains want us to do something that is safe, like vacuuming the carpet or folding clothes that we've done before and we know we survived. So you're going to have to be courageous. But focusing and narrowing things down to a single task is really helpful. And making it less scary by changing the language in your head from I want to be writing to I am going to write a terrible scene today. Not that you're going to write terribly forever, and not that you're trying to make it terrible, but you're allowed to make it terrible, right? I am writing what Anne Lamott calls the shitty first draft, and that's all you have to do today to win. So that is super important because you need to get some wins under your belt so that your brain is no longer scared of this thing and that you can talk it down off its ledge and you can say to it, listen, we're just writing a terrible first draft today. Don't send me to the refrigerator. Don't make me reach for the vacuum. I'm going to buy a Roomba. And gradually, if you focus on specific tasks and you give yourself permission to lower the bar or decrease the amount of time that you spend, you will start to win. I recently did a 100-day project where I was going to play piano every day, but it wasn't play piano every day. It was sit on my piano stool every day. That was all I had to do to get my win. Now, of course, once I was sitting at the piano stool, anything else I did was gravy. And every time I sat at the piano stool, I played some notes. So you can set something like that as your goal. You can, but the whole point of getting over procrastination is to take away the fear. If you give yourself a win where it is, I will sit at my desk or I will open my journal or I will open Scrivener or whatever it is that is your win, then your brain actually gives you a little kick and you actually start to crave that. So make your win conditions really small, really low, and meet them consistently until your brain gets the idea that this too is a safe activity. The other thing, which I would say is probably the most powerful thing I have found for avoiding procrastination, is accountability. You knew I was going to say that, right? Having an appointment to turn up for, not just an appointment on your calendar, but for me, it needs to be an appointment to meet with other people. One of the first things I did when I decided to start writing again is I went to a local writers group and they met once a month, and every other month was a critique week, a critique meeting. And so I just started turning up at that, and just knowing that I could take along 5 pages, 15 pages, whatever it was, gave me a deadline. And knowing I was going to be sitting at a table with those people and looking at their faces gave me the accountability to get something written at least once every 2 months, which at the beginning was pretty much all I was doing. Now I meet with my writing friends once a week, and more often than not, I have pages to share with them. And I know from the Story a Day Superstars group and the IWriter course that just having that appointment to turn up and see other writers' faces, you want to have something to say. You want to be able to say, oh yeah, I worked on such and such, or I wrote something, or just something. So one of the things that I push in all of my groups is turn up at the meetings, turn up. Because if you turn up, you are going to want to have something to say. And if you hide and if you keep things secret and you turn into a turtle, you are going to be able to make all kinds of excuses as to why you aren't writing or didn't write. So yeah, we're introverts often as writers, but turning up, showing up, you do a service to the other people in the group who are also gritting their teeth before every meeting when they click join meeting on Zoom. They're like, I don't want to go, but they know everyone in the group is there to say, hi, I'm a writer, here's what I did this week. It's incredibly powerful. So if you have people that you can do that with and make it a regular commitment to turn up and just chat about writing, not make excuses, just chat, then I would encourage you to take advantage of that. If you don't have a group like that, then you might want to look at the IWriter course, which is starting soon. You can find that at storyaday.com/join IWriter. And you can find out all about that. But focus, lowering your expectations to give yourself tiny wins, and making yourself accountable to other people, which is an act of generosity as well as something that you're doing for yourself. Those are my keys to getting out of procrastination, and by far the most powerful one is the accountability one for me. Some people are different, but not very many. All right, I hope that's been helpful, and I love the question. Elizabeth, thank you for your question. If you have questions, send them to julie@storyaday.org, and I will answer some of them on the next episode. In the meantime, as you do your planning for this next phase of the year, I wish you focus, and I wish you courage and creativity, and I will see you back here next time. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.